I like to rate ideas across three main things with a simple 1 to 10 rating. Stole that from growth hackers. Impact, ease of implementation, and certainty. So impact versus ease of implementation are quite straightforward. It's kind of like the ROI. I really like the certainty part because some ideas, we have a more certainty we're going to reach that impact versus other ideas. So I think this adds a lot of value as well when prioritizing ideas. Testing, exactly as we discussed before, run the experiments to test out your highest growth ideas. And track and analyze. Learn from your experiments result, see whether the test supports your hypothesis, and figure out why it does or does not.
Unbeatable product growth themes are data-obsessed, experimental, resourceful, hands-on, and nimble. They are solving for crystal clear yet insightful metrics, and they don't take their guts feeling too seriously. They will first ship and then improve and will only scale it once they will nail it. And this is exactly what we're going to teach you today on this Practical Wednesday session, the place for product managers that just want to learn how to become the masters of their domain. By the way, if you are new here, nice to meet you. My name is Maria Cassis. I'm the founder and general manager of PortalClick, and what we do is helping you to become the best product manager you can be. We are a mentoring program for product managers by product managers. We have 2 batches twice a year, and each time it's 4 months when you and your product management mentoring partner, either a mentor or a mentee, are setting yourself to success and becoming better at what we all do, building products that people fall in love with. So thank you for joining us today. This is going to be an insightful session, and I can't wait for you all to learn with us. So as I said before, today we are going to talk about growth. Actually, we're going to talk about growth hacking for your product success. And I'm not going to do it by myself. I'm going to do it with a special, very interesting guest that is going to join us. Hello to Asaf Segev.
Hey, how are you doing, Maria?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you for having me.
So thrilled to have you here with us. So guys, as you can see, I'm super excited about having Asaf here with us, and I want you to know why. So Asaf Segev is a product growth leader who specializes in building and scaling consumer-facing products that makes people's lives better. This is a big deal, especially these days. His diverse background stretches from the Israeli intelligence and Tel Aviv vibrant startup scene to Facebook and Amazon. Currently, Asaf is a director of growth at Amazon, focusing on its audiobook service, Audible. And great product, by the way. For your to Amazon, Asaf was a product growth team founding member at VIA, writer startup that is now valued at $2.25 billion, where he launched and oversaw VIA subscription product VIA Pass. Asaf is a Zell Entrepreneurship Fellow and Pritzker Group Venture Fellow, has a BSc Engineering from the Technion and an MBA from Northwestern College School of Management. And according to Asaf, this is his words, is actually his mom's favorite son. And while being based in Brooklyn, he maintained a healthy obsession with Bob Dylan.
Thank you, Maria. Thank you for doing the embarrassing part for me. I really appreciate it.
Happy to be for your service on this matter and others. And guys, this is such an important topic for all product managers out there, because this is one, like, building a good product is one thing. Making sure that it grows in a way that enables more people to enjoy it, this is another challenge. And this is exactly why this session is a must for all of you product managers out there. And because Asaf is such a nice guy, he's also here to answer your questions. So please make sure to use the chat to submit your questions. At the end of the session, we will have a Q&A part where Asaf will answer what is on your mind and heart when it comes to product growth. And we can't wait to know what you have to ask him. Another request from you all, please make sure to like this video and to like our page, because we want to stay in touch with you. And unless you do it, we won't be able to notify you on special and awesome events like this one. So this is your time to hit the like button, and I'm so excited to have this whole stage for you, Asaf. Are you ready to begin?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So happy to have you here with us and can't wait to learn.
Cool. Let's start. So, hey everyone, thank you for showing up. Really appreciate it. I'm very excited to be here with the PortalClick. And please listen to Maria. Follow their page, listen to the content, join the webinars. They're amazing. And I'm so humbled to be part of this. So thank you again, Maria. So growth tends to be somewhat of a buzzword. Passed along in networking events and added to business cards and headlines of articles. But what is it actually? To make it more fun, let's bust a few myths and start with what growth is not. So growth is not marketing. Looking at the classic funnel, as you can see here, marketing organizations have typically focused on the first two layers, awareness and acquisition. This is apparent when you look at how marketing teams are structured and the goals they operate against. Marketing teams tend to focus on KPIs that align with the top two layers of the funnel: leads, signups, new users, downloads, etc. And as a result, the majority of the team members having marketing backgrounds in content, paid acquisition, copywriting, PR, etc. But growth is focused on looking at the funnel in a more holistic manner, because the mission is about improving the growth rate of a specific metric, which could be affected by one or several layers. For example, think of daily active users. Other teams within the organization usually own the rest of the funnel beyond awareness and acquisition. So for example, product might own activation and retention, and revenue might be run by sales. But I have to mention that growth is not product as well. So core product teams have engineers, designers, PMs, and so do growth teams. So what's the difference? Product teams focus on creating value, core value, and enhancing product market fit over time. Growth teams focus on getting the core value out to the world, getting as many folks as possible to experience that value. To summarize, growth is a funnel discipline applied from the start of the product creation and is baked into every part of the funnel and everywhere the team touches, basically, giving you the ability to build product that can self-reciprocate and build brand evangelists all on its own. Now, we took the necessary long myth-busting path to define the role of the growth team. But why can't we do it as simple as defining, for example, the finance team? So the finance team, their goal is to measure, understand, and improve the flow of revenue in and out of the business. And with that in mind, as simple as that, the role of the growth team is to measure, understand, and improve the flow of customers in and out of the business. Now that we have a better idea of what the growth team is trying to accomplish, let me ask you this. What do you all think matters most for growth? Are all layers of the funnel made equal? So obviously, the answer is not. Retention is by far the most important factor in growth. I've seen it over and over again with the products I worked on and with the startups I advised on. How do you measure it? Actually quite simple. So if you look at the gray curve, percent active versus number of days from sign up. If you end up with a retention curve that is asymptotic to a line parallel to the x-axis, you have a viable business and you have product market fit for some subset of the market. Unfortunately, I still witness entrepreneurs asking about viral loops and referral programs, yada, yada, yada. Meanwhile, the retention curve slopes down towards the axis and in the end intersects with the x-axis. That's why I feel very itchy when a company, usually a startup, to be honest, reaches out to me about building a growth team to solve their top of the funnel problem. In most cases, not only they don't actually have an acquisition problem, but also the last thing they need is another head of growth. And why? Because at that point, before you hit product market fit, your head of growth should actually be the CEO. Once you hit product market fit, measured by retention, as I just showed, you can bring us and we can help you optimize it. Growth teams don't work well in silo. Sorry. The ability to hit ambitious growth targets as an organization are not simply a result of adopting the right frameworks and the coolest growth hacking tools, but it is a derivative of a cross-functional effort. Yes, it is on the growth team to define the hypothesis, build experiment, and align everyone on the goal and the exact metric to use to measure success. But at the end of the day, the most impactful growth initiatives I've seen wouldn't move the needle if not for the involvement of the people in the organization, from product, engineering, brand, PR, finance, and so on. Ideally, growth is in the company's DNA. When done right, an amazing growth program will permeate the entire organization, making an evidence-based mindset as part of your company's DNA. So, assuming everyone here would like to build products that better engage, form habits, and trigger virality, what if we could all be part-time growth hackers? What impact do you think it will have to your organization if everyone was a bit familiar about the science, frameworks, and tools that effective growth teams adopt? So for the next half an hour or so, we'll try to answer exactly that. I built this session for all of you PMs, but also marketers, engineers, designers, entrepreneurs, and anyone current or aspiring who want to learn a bit more about growth. Hopefully after this session, you will learn not only how to better work with growth teams, but also how you can apply the growth approach, you may call, to push ideas through and contribute to a better product. If you're already in growth PMs, growth marketers, fellow growth hackers, most of the concepts I will discuss should be somewhat familiar to you. So of course, you're more than welcome to stick around for the refresher. But if at any time you or actually anyone else feel that this is not exactly what you expected, it doesn't add you a lot of value, please feel free to drop off whenever you like. I hope Moria won't be upset, and I personally won't be offended. So thank you. So thank God, I put this slide, but thank God Moria helped me a little bit with it. So yeah, I have over 10 years of experience in building and scaling consumer-facing products, usually within context of startups, but I was also at Facebook for some time and Amazon. Currently at Amazon, I'm focusing on international growth strategy and for Audible. And before that, I was at VIA, working with the brightest minds in growth, in establishing a truly best-in-class growth team that I was extremely proud to be a part of. I live in Brooklyn, as mentioned, and I want to take this opportunity again to thank Moria for having me and the Product League and all my friends and everyone who was involved in putting this together. Thank you. So unbeatable growth teams are data-driven, resourceful, experimental, hands-on, and nimble. They are solving crystal clear metrics, but they don't take gut feelings too seriously. And they rather put their hypothesis to test rather than to research. They will surface non-conventional ideas and would give them a shot despite naysayers. They will first ship and then improve, and will only scale it once they nail it. I know Moria mentioned it before. I thought it's important to mention it again, because this really describes to me what growth is all about. But if I have to summarize to you guys the three most important skills in effective growth teams, I would probably say data obsessed, experimental, and exploratory mindset. Being data obsessed is very different from being a data hoarder. This is not about accumulating data, as it is about separating wheat from chaff. One, it's about building the most suitable growth stack to ensure inflow of relevant data points across all integrated platforms, attribution, in-app events, segmentation tools, marketing communication platforms, and so on and so forth. Two, it's about spending time and resources cleaning and organizing your data so it will be easier to analyze and identify growth opportunities. Three, it's about identifying the most important metrics to track and be as concise as possible around them. And four, always backing yourself with data and be extremely clear if you're not. Love this. So when I downloaded Robinhood for the first time, Robinhood is this no-fee stock trading app, if you haven't heard of so far. I filled in some personal information, connected my bank account, and 45 seconds later, I already bought a stock without any fees. Now, the last time I tried to do that, I was trying to purchase a LinkedIn stock after it fell down like 40%, a couple of years before the Robinhood experience. I filled in some endless forms, spent a day validating my bank account, and another 5 days, business days, for my deposit to be available for use. By the time the money was ready so I can buy the stock already rebounded and went up a bit. So the opportunity was a little bit missed. So when I went through all of that in less than 2 minutes with Robinhood, that was my personal aha moment with the portal. Now, aha moments are representative of a turning point for users when they realize the value in a product and set themselves up to return. Once teams figure out which actions separate users who retain versus those who don't, they can give retention a huge boost by driving users towards these actions to set them up for success. For an indicator to qualify as an aha moment, it must properly represent the tipping point for the majority of users. It is the key behavior and time frame that is most correlated to long-term retention. For an indicator to qualify as an aha moment, it must properly represent the tipping point for the majority of users, and that means specifically most users who took the action retained, and most users who retained took that action or actions, as I'll show you in a second. So what the heck am I talking about? Let's look at a few examples. So famous examples, the most famous is coming from Facebook, who actually defined this concept. So Facebook's aha metric is 7 friends in 10 days. Slack has an interesting one, around 2,000 messages within a team. Aha moments are useful in aligning multifunctional teams on a goal they can all work towards. And that's why I personally really like them and push the use of such metrics in every organization that I join. From acquiring users who are more likely to be retained to pushing users through the onboarding flow. Anyone in the organization almost can use it as a Northstar. Now let's be clear. Aha moments are actionable and provide focus, but they're not perfect. They're actually far from perfect. They mix causation and correlation, and they blend different experiences into one single number. As a result, they shouldn't be viewed as a scientific tipping point. They're often round numbers picked in the middle of a range of possibilities. But that's not really a flow. That's the point, actually. So Facebook's decision to define their aha moment in such simple terms suggests they weren't trying to optimize it to be precise as possible. Now, with this caveat, let's look at how we find the aha moment on a higher level. So first, we need to find our power users. Where do we find them? So people who became successful using your app or service probably did something differently from those who churned out early. If you can figure out what and why, you can start to reverse engineer that path for your other users. So one way to do it is to plot the power user curve. Percent active users, you can see here on the chart, broken into the number of days they were active in. So for example, we had 17% of the active users in the month of November were actually active in one single day. On the other end, you can see that 7% of the users in the month of November were active in 30 days, every day, basically. So the power user curve will smile when things are good. The power user is actually very powerful beyond the aha moment, and I'm happy to share thoughts on other applications it may have offline. This power user example is for a social product that you see here, and it shows the characteristics, smile shape that indicates that there's a group of highly engaged users using the app daily or nearly daily. They are your power users. We'll then analyze their behavior, what milestones they hit and when, to come up with the aha moment hypothesis. You need to find the actions that, when performed, best correlate with continuing to use your product for an extended period of time. Once we found these actions, so for example, this could be around like rides taken, that was like via, messages sent, friends made on Facebook, songs played, and so on and so forth. Once we found those actions, we will find the optimal number of actions and the time frame to define the aha metric. To do that, we compare different candidates across the retention curve. So at VIA, the rideshare app, as a reminder, for example, we compared a bunch of them. 2 rides, like people who completed 2 rides in their first 14 days. 3 rides in 21 days, 4 rides in 21 days, and a million other options. And then we plot them all on the retention curve and try to see which one is the best predictor of long-term retention. Being experimental. My teams always work under the assumption that we have zero idea of which growth ideas will eventually work, because we have no data to back it up. With that in mind, testing is super powerful because it allows you to gather actual data on the performance of a growth idea or a product idea or any idea. It depends a ton, but if done right, with a solid experiment infrastructure in place, and there's a bunch of tools out there, testing ideas shouldn't require that much resources. So referral programs are all around us. You share a code with a friend, he gets something, you get something. It's a win for you, it's a win for your friend, it's a win for the company. Win-win-win. It is no secret that Audible has one of the strongest and most loyal member bases. Audible doesn't have a proper referral program to leverage on this asset to accelerate growth. When I joined and asked people around about that, I eventually learned that there was a plan to build a referral program, but it actually never got prioritized. And I totally get it. How can you dedicate a team of engineers and designers and product to build something that you hope will pay itself back? Because others have done that. You have no real data to back yourself up. So we took the experiment route instead. What if we build a Refer a Friend program, MVP, without any dev work, just so we can gather real data to justify the resource investment required to build a full-out feature? So we built the whole thing in 2 weeks. We basically generated a bunch of promo codes, shared them with a randomly selected group of members, and made sure that at the end of the that at the end, to credit those who successfully referred a friend. Between us, that part was manually, mostly on my machine. Experiments are not a core exercise within growth teams, but also a very useful, a useful tool, in informing product roadmap. So we use that experiment and its result to inform product roadmap decisions, in this case, around building a referral feature. Product growth is a discipline of applying scientific methods to business KPIs. It provides an underlying system for increasing metrics, whether it's revenue, acquisition, retention, engagement, or another key business metric, as discussed earlier on. And just as you'd expect with the scientific method, the steps are built on understanding the data, creating hypotheses that identify why certain processes are happening, prioritizing those ideas, running the experiments, and then repeating the cycle. That way, if you think that your active user count is low, you can analyze the data to understand that you need more, that you have an issue with your top of the funnel. Then hypothesize that a combo of paid advertising and referrals, I'm just throwing it out there, could help, and then execute against that. That is much, much better and more targeted than just building more features that your users ask for and expecting growth to magically increase as a result. By the way, maybe you should build those features anyway to increase core value. Don't get me wrong, but don't do it for the sake of growth. So let's take a look at how we structure a growth experiment. And specifically, I'll follow along with an example from my rideshare days that my teammates at VIA ran in collaboration with NYU PhD students. It's the only experiment that I was witnessing. It wasn't even mine, that had such a thorough research paper on it. So I have to use it as an example. So Michael, this is for you. So step one, the hypothesis. We believe that proactively compensating customers who have had a bad ride experience will reduce churn. Step two, to verify this, we will target users who completed a bad ride in the last 10 minutes. What is a bad ride? Long waiting times, long travel times, etc. With an apology email and a $5 in ride credit. We'll hold a control group who doesn't get the email or the credit. Step three, we'll measure retention rate. For example, took another ride within 14 days across control and test group. And we can also look at a bunch of other metrics, like numbers of rides per rider on the following week to look at engagement change and so on and so forth. What is success? It is a success if retention rate is up by 5 percentage points. Then we'll launch the experiment and run it until we reach statistically significant results. That could suggest one way or another. Usually next step would be either a follow-up iteration with those learning. How can we improve it and get even better results? Or there's nothing in here, let's just kill it and move on. Which is also 100% fine, by the way. So if you jump headfirst into experimentation process, chances are good that you'll get lost in a sea of ideas or data or both. Sustainable growth comes from building a growth system that allow for scalable and repeatable way to generate high impact growth tactics. So it's about ideating, creating a living index of all your ideas, big and small, for how to grow your company. A good place to start is with the company's goals or OKRs, if you guys have. An idea should already have an hypothesis. Use your existing data from previous experiments or from any other source to make an educated guess, it's a guess at this point, of how much growth each of your brainstorm ideas would drive. At VIA, we actually shared our idea board with every new employee who joined the company. Prioritize. Determine which of your ideas offer the best ratio of potential growth to resources required in order to implement. I like to rate ideas across 3 main things with a simple 1 to 10 rating. Stole that from growth hackers. Impact, ease of implementation, and certainty. So impact versus ease of implementation are quite straightforward. It's kind of like the ROI. I really like the certainty part because some ideas, we have a more certainty we're going to reach that impact versus other ideas. So I think this adds a lot of value as well when prioritizing ideas. Testing, exactly as we discussed before, run the experiments to test out your highest growth ideas, and track and analyze. Learn from your experiments result, see whether the test supports your hypothesis, and figure out why it does or does not. And it's extremely important to document your findings so you can brainstorm follow-up experiments that you could run better to understand your results and feed those follow-up ideas back into step 1 of this framework. There's a few tools out there that can help you manage like an experimentation pipeline. They're mentioned here. It could be as simple as a Google Doc, by the way. Exploratory mindset. A few years ago, I was at Facebook and I was working on a growth issue related to their for sale groups. From the launch of Facebook groups in 2005, people have been using them also as kind of like Craigslist alternatives for the purpose of selling things in the local community. This behavior was especially prominent in developing countries, who actually relied on those features to put food on the table, as simple as that. Facebook noticed that trend, and to make it easier to sell things on the platform, they launched what is called like for sale group features, including a useful feature where people can create a special for sale post with a price tag, location for pickup, etc. You probably have seen that. For some reason, people in developing countries continue to use the inconvenient, regular, old post format, without a price tag, without the place for pickup, and all of that, just like in text, basically. So I ran on some analysis and found out. Oh, my bad. I ran some analysis and found out the majority of the posts that were created without the cell composer are actually coming from a very small group of people, as you can see in the chart. There are no numbers here, but the percentages, I think that plus minus what we've seen. So 10% of the sellers who haven't adopted the cell composer, contributing to 80% of the problem. And the problem defined is for sale posts that were using just the post feature and not the dedicated new for sale post. Now, I couldn't make sense of what I was seeing. Why on earth would power sellers, as it seems given the ratio of posts per seller, not newbies, intentionally use the original post format? I was struggling to come up with new ideas and I approached a senior colleague for some help. He said to me, "You need to stop looking under the lamppost." So we changed course. We reached out to talk to these power sellers to understand why they like the old post format so much. And quickly it became clear. To be efficient, power sellers have used the Facebook API to post items for sale in large quantities and across multiple groups. Since the sell post wasn't supported by the API, just a matter of prioritization, the sellers continue to use the old format. As simple as that. You need to stop looking under the lamppost. Basically, what we found, just to get to the bottom line here, is that Once we talked to those sellers to understand their behavior, we realized that in order to be efficient, these power sellers use Facebook API to post items for sale in large volume and across multiple groups. Since the sell post wasn't supported by the API, just a matter of prioritization, the sellers continued using the old format. So it looked inconvenient to us, but actually the old format that you just put a bunch of text with the price and the location and the information about the item was much easier for them, given the method that they use in order to spread the word. So you need to stop looking at Under the Lamppost. It's actually stuck with me for some time. And I want to tell you a story. So the parable of the lamppost tells loosely of a young couple walking home after an evening out. They arrive home only to discover they have dropped their keys somewhere along the way. Troubled, they race into the dark night, retracing their steps, and stop underneath the nearest lamppost. As one searched carefully under the light, the other asked, "Why are you searching here?" To which the first replied, "Because this is where the light is shining." In science, as in life, we don't always have all the information. Whether it's looking for your misplaced keys, solving your current user adoption problem, or discovering your next breakthrough channel. To come up with a new idea, the human brain works in at least two distinct modes, engaging different mental systems depending on the task. The two different modes are the decision-making mode and the exploratory mode. The so-called lack of focus in the exploratory mode can lead to new connections and generating new ideas. In fact, creativity, after all, is just connecting things in new and useful ways. So growth is not only about optimizing existing channels, but about surfacing new and unconventional ideas and channels. For the latter, this exploratory mindset is quite useful if you learn how to take advantage of it. If you want to learn more about how to develop and engage your exploratory mind, I recommend the book Originals, How Nonconformists Move the World by Adam Grant. So I want to finish up this session with a story about discovering new channels where least expected. So when I joined Audible, I was assigned to explore growth opportunities within the real world. The real world, like the physical world, like retail and things of that sort. Immediately, an image from an old Tarantino movie came to my mind. Myself wearing a salesman suit, occupying a little Audible stand at a dealership, trying to upsell new car buyers with an Audible membership. We are targeting commuters, after all. So growth is about scalability and attribution, and this space was very foreign to me. But despite that, I was up for the challenge. That's how Audible's street marketing program started. We have trained ambassadors to engage with commuters. Commute is one of Audible's top use cases, and helping them to onboard to Audible. The results exceeded everyone's expectations, including mine, to be honest, showing better return than our most successful paid channels. The program was so efficient that we had plans to expand it nationally and perhaps globally. And then COVID happened. And I don't need to share anything beyond that. In the growth world, exploratory mindset is about consciously being on the lookout for growth ideas. It's about spending hours exploring user onboarding flow behaviors without a clear goal. It's about talking to peers from other industries completely. It's about observing marketing tactics of a fruit stand and thinking of their potential applications. Embracing the strategic diffusion could be somewhat contradicting to how laser-focused growth teams are, with hitting targets. But in my opinion, the ability to balance the two is what separates good growth teams from great ones. So growth team is a team sport, as we discussed, and while it's somewhat of a new field, it has attracted some of the brightest minds. So I want to give a quick shout out to all the growth OGs, as well as my colleagues from now and before, for inspiring this deck and influencing the way I approach growth programs. Just to name a few: Andrew Shen, of course, Sean Ellis, Brian Balfour, the people who helped grow Facebook: Andy Jones, Alex Schultz, and Chamath Palipatia. I hope I pronounced it correct. And special thanks to Ori Klein, who brought me to VIA, gave me a chance, and taught me so much of what I know about growth. Thank you, everyone. Maria, back to you.
I just love how you opened your session with just the saying that growth is not marketing, right? It's much more than that. It's about your mindset. It's about setting the right Northstar. It's about being open to discover more about your product and about the way your users use it and what are their expectations. And just like you said, that one of the best channels for you at Audible was to really understand where people are going to use your product, right? And set their onboarding process there. And I just love the fact that you open with that and continue with that throughout the session, because this is exactly why we are having this session today, because growth mindset is not something that is set for marketing people. This is something that every product manager has to build in with themselves, because otherwise, as we just said before, you build something that people don't get the chance to use, and it's a shame, right?
It's very much a shame.
And I'm so happy for you to mention all
Thank
this.
you.
And we are going to continue with some questions from the audience. But before, I just have to put on the screen Sophie's wonderful comment saying, "Oh, so that's the growth hacking. You are growth hacking me into another month of Audible subscription. Exactly. You are getting the chance to meet the people behind your beloved products." So exactly that. And we are staying with Sophie.
That's funny, Sophie. Yeah.
So we're staying with Sophie, and she's asking what makes sense to measure in the awareness stage. So you're just starting, okay? It's either a startup or a new product within, more established company. You're got people to know about it. You want to increase the level of awareness out there, right? What are the right things for the team to measure?
That's a tough question.
Yeah, here for the tough ones.
Yeah, awareness is challenging. A few things that come to mind. So first, when you just start off, you have very little brand awareness. So there's not much to measure. But once you, I think it makes sense to run different awareness metrics. Once there's a little bit more establishment. So at VIA, for example, at one point we were trying to figure out our brand awareness penetration in New York. And actually, recently we've been doing that in several markets at Audible. So we basically use like Facebook tools to run surveys around brand recognition, prompted, not prompted, things of that sort. They're somewhat useful because they put some numbers, but it always feels a little bit like lacking. So it's informing, but it's just there isn't really like a silver bullet. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, because I lost you. No, you are here. I was afraid that we lost you again, because it is a struggle, right? Especially when you're at this stage, just understanding what are the right things to measure. And at the meantime, while the audience is submitting their questions, guys, Asaf is waiting for you to share what is on your mind and heart when it comes to growth hacking for product managers. And in the meantime, they are doing it. May I ask you a question of my own?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So this is something I'm very much curious about. You had the privilege to work for both startups and corporates, right? Corporations. Now, although the corporations you've been working with are, considered as cool and innovative and, less of corporate America, but still big companies, when there is already a very established, probably department and team of people that are, going up every morning with a growth mindset in their head. Startups, everything is so fluid. You may come when, it's just like three people in the room. You may join when there are 30, and both cases you may find out that there is no much of a growth strategy that is set. Now, aside of this one and the fact that there are people in the company that are with the title, right, of growth, what are the differences between, being a part of a startup and a part of a corporate when it comes to growth mindset? And the reason I'm asking that is because this is a question I know from our mentors and mentees on product. This is something that is very often described as a challenge, right? How to balance your determination to grow the product within the stage of and the size of the company that you're in. So I'm curious about your thoughts.
I'm happy to share. I think the role of growth changes dramatically with the size and the maturity of the company, and also the industry, to be honest. But on a high level, I would say that very young startups, and there's a big difference between seed, pre-Series A startups, and Series C startups. So those that are earlier on, first, as I mentioned before, they shouldn't have a growth team because the whole company is a growth team. Focusing specifically on nailing that product market fit, making sure that there is a product out there that is driving like habitual behavior and overall retention, long-term retention with their users. If I was happen to lead a startup like that, I would definitely focus on the aspects that are around retention rather than paid ads and things of that sort. Larger startup organizations are very focused on growth, not necessarily on profits, which is very it's a wonderful ground to be in is if you're in growth. At VIA, we had the luxury to have enough resources and the mandate to run pretty rigorous experiments to better improve retention. So there was a product market fit, but how can we better improve retention? How can we prevent early life cycle churn was a big focus of ours. How can we bring people back who already churned? Better engaging users with subscriptions. Those were the things of our focus at that side of the organization. And we have very strong mandate independency to do that, to your question. In large organizations, it's very different. And I'll be honest, it's more challenging because you don't have the liberty of taking an idea, as strong as you feel about it, and just take it to the execution as quickly, because there are, for example, if you wanna create like a discount campaign, like a very simple growth experiment to improve engagement. You need to run through the marketing operations department, and they have their own SLAs, and you need to incorporate designers and copywriters, and everything needs to be more perfect, and those things slow the process a little bit. So the type of skills and the work of growth hacking big organization involve a lot of cross-functional management work. And which slows down a little bit the process. But the good aspect is that it's there's a ton of data. So you can run experiments and get significant results quite quickly. So it takes a really long time to set up experiments. So if at VIA we used to run ideas every day, like in a bigger company, it could take, sometimes a couple of 2-3 weeks. But the results come in fast and very significant. So that's a little bit of how doing growth is different across different company sizes.
Yeah, so basically, when you're a startup, you have more autonomy over doing the same thing in a corporate, but your resources, right? All kinds of resources may be different in scale.
Yeah,
Let's
exactly. Exactly.
let's put it out this way. But this being said, one of the things that you mentioned on the session, was just, you nailed it when you said it. You don't really need a special, a software, stuff like that. Like a Google Doc will work, right?
Yeah.
Your mindset will do everything else that will join in terms of the software, fancy products that you can use. They're just enablers to either you have the right strategy and mindset and experiments, etc. In the market. So thank you very much for that. And
Exactly.
Vladimir has a really interesting question to you, and is asking, probably you solve the issue of demand and supply balance on marketplace. So we're talking about network effects. Any tips on how to start up with a new product should deal with this issue when you need to bring users from the demand side, but you don't have others from supply side yet, and the opposites. So I'm hiding it so we could see your face, but this is Vladimir's question, and I'm eager to learn from you.
That's
Tough one.
yeah. I love it. I'm getting like only tough questions.
It's a league, baby.
Yeah. It's a tough one. I think the discipline, at least at VIA, so VIA is the main marketplace that I had experience, where we tried to grow drivers in parallel to growing the rider base. The way we approach growing riders is significantly different than the way we work around growing drivers. So riders is basically more of like a consumer like growth marketing, paid ads, referrals, subway campaigns, things of that sort. But for drivers, it was completely different. Like we had people going to the airport to talk to drivers and try to get them on board because we needed much fewer drivers than riders. There's no, in this rideshare marketplace, it's not even. There's much bigger scale on the ride side and on the driver side. Also, engagement on driver is run completely different. There's like a CRM when they manage the relationship. Maybe they send them birthday wishes. They run events for them. I was working solely on the rider side, and I think that the right thing to do is, at least in our context, is to separate the two. Given that the tactics that we use were 80% or more different than similar. So I hope I shed some light, but I think that the bottom line is to understand that these two groups are completely, as much as they're meeting in the car or in whatever situation that you run in the marketplace, they're completely different in their use case, their needs, the channels you can use to reach out to them, and therefore should be run completely independent, in my opinion. There should be some kind of like knowledge sharing between like each side of the marketplace, learn like doing some sharing some best practices and things of that sort. But I would just basically try to solve for each independently with its own metrics, its own use cases, etc.
And it is the right approach, as we know that in cases like this, the effort that you need to invest in bringing on each one of the sites, right, of the network is different. So
Yeah.
you should treat it as somewhat of a separated product, right? The
Yeah.
value that you offer is different. Your relationship is different because you pay for one and the other one is paying you. So the
Yeah.
whole, as you said, the whole relationship here is different. And I actually I agree with you, and I like your approach to treat it as someone of a different product. So thank you very much for that. And before we end our session, dear Asaf, may I challenge you?
Wow. Go.
Yeah, we just started. Just set the bar here, and now we go.
Yeah. Love it.
So we are product managers, right? We're all product professionals here, and we have to prioritize everything we do, right? Everything is about prioritizing. And with that in mind, you mentioned so many key tips and strategies for us to follow tomorrow morning. But if to choose from all the insightful tips that you shared with us today, what is the one thing that you would like everyone in the audience to think about tomorrow morning when they probably sit at home because we're on COVID, but working from home and open their laptop and set to work? What is the one thing that you would like them to keep in mind in order not only to build a product, but also to grow the product? And I'll give you some time to think because I want to remind the audience, in case you don't know, that applications for our next batch, summer 2020, are now open. So if you would like to become the best product manager you can be, or the best product leader you can be, mentee or a mentor, please make sure to either go to our website and apply, or just to look for the links in the comments, and we can't wait for you to join us on your product adventure of your life. So, Asaf, one thing that you would like everyone at the audience to keep in mind tomorrow morning, myself included, when it comes to our product work.
So, if I have to decide one, and it's tough, and I'm kind of on the spot, but I'll give it a shot. When you work on a product, there's always like you come up with different ideas that you think would make the product so much better. We love to do it for other people's products, but it holds also for the product that we work on. But the thing is that it's really hard to push it forward in the organization, even in a startup, because you're prioritizing so many different features, but there's this one thing that you personally think that if we did it, it would allow us to grow and increase user value. So my one tip is to try to think, if there's an idea like that you feel strongly about, try to think, what is the most minimal test that you can run with little resources as possible, just so you can gather a little bit of data to then build a one-pager. Amazon is all about, like documents, but it could be a presentation, building a case that we have to do this feature because I took the time, my spare time, that you probably don't have much, to run this little experiment. It could be a questionnaire, it could be some like marketing-based, email-based, whatever it is. And I have these data to back up why I think it's going to be successful. You'd be surprised of how useful having a little bit of data can help in pushing your ideas through and making an impact. And mostly because it's really hard to deprioritize things that you have data on. Because even if you compete with like a really awesome feature that everyone is on board, your idea has some data to back it up on why it will actually work with certain uncertainty. And the other one, maybe not. So give yourself a little edge by trying to experiment to gather data and push your ideas through.
We lost you for 2 seconds, I think, but I think it was just at the end of what you said. And it's like it was like drop the mic, right? You said, guys, these are my words of wisdom. You should do it tomorrow morning. Drop the mic. I'm just disappearing from your screen.
Oh, that's hilarious. So basically the bottom line is everyone has a feature idea that they really want to push forward. It's really hard to make the case. Just define the most simplest experiment that you can do, even in your spare time, in order to get some data and build a case for it, whether in the form of a document or a deck that you're going to present to your leadership. It's going to go a long way on making it happen.
Amazing. wise words. I hope we all remember it tomorrow morning when we start a new work day. Guys, this was Asaf Segev, Director of Growth at Audible Amazon, and I just had a blast having you here with us today. How was it for you?
Amazing. I had a great time. I wish I could interact a little bit more with the people.
On your next session, we will make something on your next session.
Yeah. Find me on LinkedIn. Feel free to reach out. I'm happy to help in any way I can offline.
He's one of the nicest, and when he says that you could reach out to him, he absolutely means it. So please follow up on it because he's one of the brightest minds in our industry when it comes to product growth. Asaf, I had so much fun. Thank you for joining me here today. Leaguers, tomorrow work on what you just learned and act so your product will work. Bye bye, everyone. See you next week.
Thank you.